Hey, welcome back to Financial Revelations. I am David Safransky, your host, a real American and the voice you can trust. Of course, you could always get me on Twitter, owned by Elon Musk. It's very exciting these days, at SkiBucks1. I don't really put a lot up there, so don't waste your time, really. But you can email questions to Corey, Kory, at epsf.com. Corey at epsf.com. You can call us, 1-800-344-2534, and I'm on WCRF 103.3 FM every Thursday, except for the next two, because they're on Christmas vacation. It'd be nice to get 2 weeks Christmas vacation at the end of the year, you know? It's almost like being in school. But I'm on there from 8 to 9, and the next live broadcast that we'll have will be the first week of the new year. I'll just be coming back from Florida. I'll be tan, but of course you won't be able to see that. So if you have questions, you can email Corey, you can call us. So a lot of questions that I'm getting right now at the end of the year are, do I see what we call a Santa Claus Rally coming? And a Santa Claus Rally, for those of you who don't know, is just a market move up towards the end of the year. It does tend to happen quite frequently, but this is why I don't see one happening this year. I think this year it's going to be difficult because, well, it's been a bad year. And so there are losses in portfolios that if you could take them, you will sell a stock that's down if you have a long-term capital loss in it. It's called tax loss selling, and you have to stay out of that particular stock or any stock in that marketplace or like it for 31 days. And at the end of 31 days, you can buy that stock back or that position back, and you can keep the loss. So there's a couple of stocks that we have that are down. We're going to sell them. We're selling them now. And I will buy that stock back, hopefully right around the same price in 31 days, because I don't think that potentially January is going to be any better. The turn of the calendar sometimes does make a difference, usually to the downside. But I think I'll be able to get a lot of those stocks back right around the same price. And the thing about a loss is that you could have unlimited losses just stacking up there, waiting to be used against gains that you have forever. There's a carryover forever on the losses, so you can keep them. And when you do have gains, you can match those gains and losses up. So it's a good way to, if it's possible, and I want you to talk to your finance people before you just go selling everything in your portfolio, but it's a good way to get a little tax efficiency in a portfolio. So if you have some losses, they're long-term or short-term losses, you compare short-term losses and short-term gains up with each other. So that's why I don't think that there's going to be a Santa Claus Rally, because I think a lot of people are doing what I'm doing, and that is selling some of the losers, which tends to drive down the market. So yesterday there was a big market day, and we're probably going to give it all back today because people see that big market day, and the orders at the open tend to be sell orders. Now, remember, whenever there's a sell order, whenever a stock trades hands, there has to be a buyer and a seller. So somebody is saying, hey, I like that, while other people are saying, hey, I hate that. I don't know who's right. I guess time will tell. And the thing about the stock market in America is, over time, it tends to go up. So there's only one 10-year period of time that I know of that the market lost money, and that was the 10-year period of time from 2000 to end of 2009. And you had 2008 in there, and you had 2001 in there. I don't know if you guys remember what it was like going into Y2K. I do. We were so scared that the world was going to shut down. And then the market fell for a totally different reason, but it fell indeed. March of 2000, the dot-com bubble burst. And so you had a pretty nasty decade in there. Well, you don't really get too many of those. We have one. And so I think in the long run, our markets tend to go up. Of course, there's no guarantee. And you could be in a rising market and own bad stuff. So that's why it pays to hire somebody if you don't really know what you're doing or know where to look, it pays to hire somebody. So this year that we're in right now is the worst year in the market since 2008, and it has been a miserable stock market year. And it's not been good for anybody. It's not been good for us as a firm or but I believe in a couple of years all will be forgotten and forgiven. I remember back as I read about it, I was just a kid when Jimmy Carter was president, but Jimmy Carter was potentially one of the nicest people we've ever had as president. He was the first president born in a hospital. Very nice man, good Christian guy. He was a horrible economic president. He surrounded himself with people who didn't understand economics. They made things worse. We had high inflation, and Jimmy Carter led to the rise of Ronald Reagan and quite potentially the greatest bull market in the country's history. And right now we're in Jimmy Carter 2.0, and they may even be worse economically. Time will tell, but we're about to spend this big omnibus spending bill into a market that's inflated. Only one thing can happen. You create inflation. Governments create inflation. It doesn't happen naturally from the markets. So all power is cyclical. Have faith. Think long term. Short-term investors usually get burned. And the market works over the long term. The market works. When people call me and say, hey, I need an investment for just 2 years, something that is going to be really hot and make me a lot of money, I say, I'm not your guy. That's not what we do here. So, what is working right now? Let's talk about that, because and then I'm going to talk about what didn't work this year. But what is working right now at this moment is bond yields. Bond yields are working. The Fed has raised rates. I think they're going to raise rates another full point. I think we got a 50 basis point rise in January, and then a 25, and then a stop, or a 25 and stop. But what is working is the bond market. You could buy bonds at the top of the interest rate cycle, and we're getting a lot closer to that. So I like bonds and the bond market in general. So you have the government side, the U.S. government side. Every bond is backed by the full faith and credit of the federal government. You're always going to get paid back. If they don't pay people back, we're in bigger trouble than I can describe. So we're going to pay people back. And then there's the corporate bond side, which is interesting because those yields are generally, you get a premium for those bonds because there's more risk there, because if the company that you have a bond in isn't in business when the bond comes due, you might not get paid back, and that's one of the risks in the bond market. The other risk is interest rate risk. Whereas think of a seesaw where you have bond yields on one side and bond values on the other. When one goes up, the other's probably going to go down. So as rates go up, people who own bonds now, their value is dropping a little bit. That's called the interest rate risk of the bonds. That's why, if possible, we want to buy bonds at the top of the interest rate cycle, not the bottom. So that is what's working. Well, what didn't work this year? Coincidentally, the bond market didn't work because at the beginning of the year, rates were much lower. So if you owned a bond at the beginning of the year, you're probably negative. You're losing money on that bond right now because rates have come up so much. So you're going to hold those bonds to maturity, but it also wasn't a great year for the bond market. But because we're closer to the top of that interest rate cycle, it's starting to look really attractive. In fact, I've been in the bond market more now, probably about as much as 2006. That was the last time I was in the bond market this much. There's been times along the way that have made sense to buy bonds, but not like this. So we're really looking at that. The other thing that hasn't worked at all is cryptocurrency. I think of the FTX debacle that's going on right now, where everybody's getting charged, and looks like they absconded with about $9 billion of customer accounts. And one of the things in our businesses, which is critical, is that when you take on somebody's account, when they've trusted you with their money, that money stays in an account that's segregated from everybody else, including the firm, including mine, including anybody's. So they're segregated accounts. So there's no way that money could mistakenly go from one account to another, or from that account to the owner's account. It just can't happen in a normal, proper setting. They didn't do that. They just took the money. They were spending money on, well, it looks like, allegedly, spending money on condos and other things. People are pleading guilty, so they're trying to get in front of it and trying to get as little jail time as they can. Sam Bankman-Fried, the CEO, I think he's under the impression if he confesses on an Oprah-like setting, he's not going to get jail time. That's not how it works. He's going to jail. I have never owned crypto. I don't own it now, and it's likely that I never will own it. But, stay tuned. But for me, as an investment professional, I don't know what I'm buying. Am I buying code? Am I buying a physical coin? And could I spend it? If so, where? How easy it is to convert? How much does it cost to buy? What's the markup on it? I think you're buying hot air when you're buying crypto. And so I've stayed away from it. And I realize that people have made money on it. The Winklevoss twins, who founded Facebook, made $8 billion on Bitcoin and got out. So they were smart. I don't recommend it for 99% of the people I talk to. I just don't think it's a good investment. And now the market hasn't been a great investment this year either, but I have confidence in that because I know what I own and I have a lot of control there, and I kind of like that. In the crypto market, I have no control and I don't like it and I don't know what I own, so I haven't bought it. And if you don't know what you own, don't buy it. Another thing that has worked out horribly, even worse in the crypto market, is the NFT market, the non-fungible token market. Do you remember these pictures of gorillas that somebody was selling for $5 million? Well, lo and behold, those things are worth like 50 cents now. Now, why didn't I get in, I'm telling you, in the face of extreme pressure from some clients to explain to me what the NFT market is? I'd say, I don't know. You're buying a cartoon. Why don't you just copy it if you really want a cartoon figure? Extreme pressure from some people. My discernment told me to stay away, even in the face of this incredible opposition and pressure. And really, it was the right decision at the right time for the right reasons, and I stuck to my guns. We're just not going to buy NFTs and things like that. I only want to take the amount of risk that I have to take to get the rate of return that I'm looking to get. And so when somebody comes up with this brand new, fresh idea, like NFTs, and I think the big cryptocurrency isn't new. It's been around for several years, but I think the implementation of it across broad spectrums of investors is new. And so a lot of people who are buying it, it's not that they're misinformed, they're not informed. And when somebody says, well, I think I'll take a flyer on that, I'm not interested. I don't take flyers on things. We manage money, and we have a process here that we work through. And so we're just not going to do that stuff. So if you say, hey, I'd like to go talk to Dave and get me some NFTs, I'm not your person. So just find somebody else who will do that for you. But because we're not going to do that. So what we do, and what I think is a proper way to manage money, is we look at, when do you want the money back? How much do you need out of the portfolio right now? Do you need income out of it right now? A lot of people come to us that are retired or retiring, and they needed to generate a little cash flow for them. So we have to make that happen. You're not going to do that in Bitcoin or NFTs. I'd rather buy a collectible car. I'd rather buy a Ferrari. I'm trying to get my wife to let me buy a Ferrari, but I'm getting nowhere. So I might need some help. I need suggestions. How do I get my wife to let me buy a Ferrari? Now, I could buy one. I once bought a car, different color, parked it in the garage for 2 weeks, didn't tell my wife. So we're eating dinner one night, and my son said, you're only making it worse for yourself. You're going to have to tell her. And so I said, okay. So we sit down for dinner, and I tell my wife, I remind her, hey, remember how you said you don't care what I do with my cars, buy any car I want, whatever. And she said, yeah, I remember that. I said, well, I bought a car. Okay. And she said, oh, when do you get it? I said, well, I got it 2 weeks ago. It's been in the garage for all 2 weeks, and it's bright red. And you haven't even noticed it. And she didn't believe me. So she got up, she went in the garage. Lo and behold, my Audi was in there. She didn't talk to me for 2 weeks. So if I buy a Ferrari, it has to be red. I don't think she'll know. And when she says, were the cup holders always here? I'll say, well, yeah, the cup holders in this car were always there. And that's not a lie. They were. So I have a plan. But if you have a suggestion, how do I get my wife to let me buy a Ferrari? I'm all ears. And I would only buy it to collect it and then sell it because they do go up in value. So I want to wish you guys a Merry Christmas. I want to let you know that if you need something, if you have a question and you call here, we're not going to ring the register on you. There's no charge. We're not going to charge people for everything. We want to make sure that you get information, that you have what you need, and you don't have to implement any ideas here. You can take them wherever you want and do it. But I encourage you to get information, get educated about these things like crypto and NFT so you don't make a mistake, because you're going to be left holding the bag. Sam Bankman-Fried is going to go to jail. He's going to get out of jail, and he's probably still going to be wealthy. But he took everybody's money along with him. It just seems to work out like that for these people. They never really pay the price that you think they should pay. Now, in Bernie Madoff's case, those investors got back in between 70 and 80% of what they lost because there were assets. I don't know that that's going to happen here. So I want you to get educated. I want you to get knowledge. I want you to get the wisdom that you need, the discernment to make a wise decision for you and your family so that you can build wealth. And because I know that if the people listening to my podcast and listening to me on the radio build wealth, they're going to give it away. They're going to go dig wells someplace or support charities or give it to they're going to support people. They're going to support God's word. And that's what I think the real job of our wealth is. We definitely want to use it for our good and support our life and things like that, but within reason. And we also want to give a lot away. If you want to know what kind of stranglehold money has on you, if it does, give it away. And if you can't do it, well, I think we need to have a discussion, because it's not just about us. It's about spreading God's word and reaching out to people and helping people that are disadvantaged, because we've been blessed with so much. So I want to wish you guys a Merry Christmas. I want you to stay healthy. I know COVID's running around. Don't put on masks. Just don't do it. Avoid it. I hate the masks. I hated them when we had to wear them. I'm going to do everything I can not to wear a mask. But you got to make your own decision. So if you wear a mask, I'm not going to make fun of you or anything like that, but I am not going to do it. Merry Christmas, and I'll see you next week.